Okay. Welcome out, everybody, to TI's second week of our online 8-week boot camp. Very excited about this evening. This is Brian Bulkey, Emerald Director from San Antonio, Texas. I know that are enjoying spring break with your kiddos, and I definitely am as well. Spending it up here in the mountains for a couple days. But I will tell you, I'm excited about this evening. You guys are in for a real treat. It was only about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months ago that I got the chance to meet this presenter. And I will tell you from day one, I was just in awe with his depth of his knowledge, but not only just his background with his information and the expertise that he possesses in his career, but more importantly, his true desire, guys, to really want to help people. He really is. He's reaching out, doing a lot of cool things, not only with his own personal family, his own personal time, but with organizations and entities and nonprofits that he has. Really trying to make a dent into this massive healthcare and wellness issue that so many of us are dealing with. And so I'm excited tonight. As you can see from the screen already, he's going to be talking about probably one of the biggest issues that many people are dealing with today, which is cravings. I will tell you that if you've never heard Dr. Emran speak, be prepared and be ready to take some notes because, like I said, his information and his knowledge is very, very broad and very deep. He is a board-certified general and pediatric surgeon. He went to school at the University of Southwestern Medical School in Dallas and got his residency at the University of Illinois Metropolitan Group Hospitals. He's an author of numerous pediatric health articles, and currently right now he serves as the director for the Children's Diabetes and Weight Loss Director for the Driscoll Children's Hospital there in Corpus Christi, Texas. I will tell you right now that he is willing and able and has offered to do a question and answer section at the end of this. So during this next few 30 to 45 minutes to an hour worth of a presentation, if you guys want to jot down any questions that you have, on your control panel that you see on your screen, there is an option for questions. If you hit the little drop-down arrow there, you guys will actually be able to type in questions, and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered in, and Dr. Emran will be there to help you out with some of those. So I hope you guys are ready. Sit back and enjoy. You guys are in for a real treat tonight. Like I said, this guy's got a real passion for helping people, and I'm definitely excited. So, Dr. Emran, I'm turning it over to you. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Brian. It is so great to be here. I'm always excited to share information with people and hopefully get them to think about things a little bit differently than when they came on. I really appreciate the introduction there, Brian, and hope to give everybody a lot of answers to a lot of questions that they may have had in their minds. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. One of the things that I really want people to understand is that there are a lot of essential nutrients. When we talk about cellular nutrition, there's a lot of things that our body just simply can't make and that we need to live. And we need to get those things from the food that we eat, the supplements that we take. So when we don't have those, what happens? Well, one of the things that oftentimes we think about are cravings. And the definition of a craving is really a longing or a yearning for something. And most of us think of cravings as for food, but there can be cravings for a lot of other things. Now, one of the reasons that I find this important to talk about isn't just so that we understand cravings, but it's really a way to oftentimes help break the ice with people. Many of us want to share opportunities for people to improve their health, and when we try to do that, sometimes we're not really sure where to start. Well, when you see somebody craving something or going after particular types of food on a regular basis, or they say they're craving something, this creates a really good opportunity to share some information about improving their health that they may not have known about before. So when somebody gets a craving, it may be their body's way of telling them that they're missing something. And we'll get into a little bit about but not only do we get cravings in that we feel like we want something, but there are also physical signs that we need to be aware of that can go along with deficiencies. And so our cravings are maybe the first step, but then our body starts giving us a little bit louder signals. So first the body kind of gives you a nudge, and then if you're not responding to that nudge, then things get a little bit worse, and then you have to really pay attention. So why do we really get cravings? Well, there's a lot of different things that can go into getting cravings. The first thing is you might be missing something. A particular nutrient in your diet isn't there. You're just missing it. You're not getting enough variety in your diet, or you're not eating something that maybe you have an allergy to, or you just never grew up eating it. You may have too much of something. You're eating the same thing over and over again on a regular basis, and it's causing your body to have to balance that out with something else. You're addicted to something, and so that makes you want to get that. If you guys listened to the last talk on when I was talking about Oreo cookies, you know, Oreo cookies can be pretty powerful as a craving, but it's really more of an addiction than actually missing anything that might be coming from those Oreo cookies. Or an emotional need. If you find that you're eating at times, or that you associate foods with certain times or occasions, such as birthday cake and ice cream, or turkey and stuffing, those things may be emotional rather than an actual physical need, but we still feel like we want it just the same. Sometimes the cravings can be pretty vague, and other times they can be much more specific. You've heard of women talking about what they crave during their pregnancy, and those pregnancy cravings are there to tell us you need to be taking something specific. The problem is oftentimes our diets aren't varied enough for us to really know and pick what it is we crave. So it's really important for ladies particularly that when you do eat something, or you do feel a craving, that you try to find what it is in the diet that you are missing, and try to fulfill that before you ever get pregnant, because God forbid you are missing some key nutrient that you can't get from the food that you're eating, and your body is trying to tell you that, but then the baby's born with a problem, and you weren't able to fulfill that craving. So really it's important to kind of figure out what your body needs when you feel certain ways. So the way I like to think about nutrients in the body and our body in general is kind of like a clock. Now, when we talk about getting any particular nutrient, we're talking about gears in that clock. And you may be putting in the gear for vitamins, you may be putting in the gears for minerals, you may be putting the gear in for protein, but without each and every one of those gears, the other ones really don't do anything, and you can't really tell time. So it's not about getting one thing, and you can't eliminate any of those gears for the body to work properly. So you have to have each and every one of them in the proper amounts, and the proper, just like the gears are the proper sizes and have the proper number of teeth, you have to have them in the proper amounts, and in order to have good health. Now, I want to start off with an example of one of the things that a lot of people crave. A lot of people crave sugar. And I'm going to show you a little bit of why cravings start to happen. I'm getting some reverb there, Brian, if somebody's got the microphone turned on. I'll show you a little bit of why cravings start to happen with sugar in particular. So sugar, as you know, comes from sugar cane or sugar beets. And then it goes through a refining process, which is really complex. This is the diagram of sugar refining companies. And it actually, it's not just taking the juice from these things and concentrating them. That's the way sugar used to be made. But now they put them through all kinds of processes, including centrifuging it to get all the solids out, putting it over a carbon filter to get out some of the other residues, and because the ions within it, the salts and things within it are oftentimes linked to the color. And so in order to get that pure white color of the sugar that we're used to, they put it through this exchange that takes out all the minerals within the sugar. So all you have after the refining process is clarified pure sucrose, that white stuff that we're pouring on everything. Now this is a problem because after we remove it, we take out something that's really important, chromium. Chromium helps regulate sugar levels in the body, and guess what? Chromium comes from beets and sugar cane. Okay, so when we refine the sugar, we actually take out the thing that helps us regulate that sugar when we eat it. And that's the problem with a lot of the things that we're eating when they become refined. And that's why a lot of people are promoting eating whole foods and taking things in the natural form. Because once you start stripping that food away from where it came from, it changes. And it has a really profound impact on your body. And you can see just by these pictures, there's a big difference between the regular beets that we buy in the stores. The ones on the left there are the ones that we usually associate with beets. These are the red beets that have color and flavor. But in order to get rid of that flavor, make it easier for them, for the sugar manufacturers to process, they genetically modified the beets in order to get what you see on the right. No color, nothing in there other than sugar. They're about 4 times as big or even bigger, and they lack a lot of the nutrients that are in regular beets. So these sugar beets are nothing more than a manufactured way to create lots of sugar really, really fast. So this is a real problem when we're thinking about what are we going to include in our diet. So right now, the only non-genetically modified way to get sugar is sugarcane. And the best way to take that sugar is probably sugar in the raw. Not necessarily that trade name, but sugar that hasn't been processed, that hasn't gone through all those filtration processes to remove all the impurities. Because once you do, like I said, you lose one of the key elements that's going to help you control your blood sugar when you do eat that sugar. Now, sweet cravings in general can happen because of a lot of things. And that could be, like I mentioned, from chromium deficiency, tryptophan, which is an amino acid that's found in cheese, turkey, and chicken, sulfur, which we can get from the foods you see listed there, phosphorus, and vitamin D. If you recall some of my other talks, I talked about how vitamin D deficiency actually changes the way the body uses sugar and puts us at risk for not only obesity, but it also puts us at risk for diabetes, an inability to manage our blood sugar correctly. But we also get problems just from lack of sunlight, and that can give you sweet cravings as well. By being in the dark, by being in lighting that mimics fall and winter months, we start turning on the mechanism in our body to crave things that are sweet and starchy in order to be able to put on weight to survive those conditions. The other thing is the temperature that we're living in. A lot of us have air conditioning in our homes. Those of us who are lucky enough to live in places that don't need air conditioning don't have to deal with this problem as much because our bodies are usually in tune with the temperature outside. But when we get in areas where we use a lot of air conditioning and we turn that temperature down, that's a problem. There's a magic number of around 76 degrees that actually triggers the body to go into the same mode that happens naturally in the fall, and that's to gain weight. And that gaining weight usually happens because our taste buds start being primed to have more sweets, and our body really craves those sweets and starches. So we start searching for it. Ever wonder why when you come into a grocery store that the temperature is turned down really low? Ever wonder why where they're making hot donuts, the temperature is turned down really low in the store and the rest of the store? It's not to keep the people cool in the back. It's actually to keep the customers cool and drinking more coffee and eating more donuts. Now, there are a lot of minerals that we need in our diet. And those minerals come from all the different foods that we eat. Now, one of the things I'm also going to mention, I'm going to mention here in a second, one of the most popular cravings. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I think a lot of people talk about it, and you'll see how that impacts a lot of these minerals here in a second. Now, if you think about common things that cause cravings, what do you think about? Yeah, chocolate. That's one of my favorites. Now, when we think about chocolate, why does chocolate cause so many cravings? Well, the reason is most of us have had chocolate, and most of us have the taste buds for the chocolate. So sometimes it's a craving because of the sugar, and sometimes it's because of some of the other things in chocolate. Now, chocolate contains a lot of things. Chocolate contains a lot of those minerals that I talked about, things such as magnesium and calcium, iron, zinc, copper, potassium, manganese, a lot of different things. Now, the interesting thing is I gave a presentation a couple weeks back at the City Hall here in Corpus Christi, Texas, and at the City Hall they're having an initiative, a weight loss challenge, and they're trying to get all their employees to enroll to get healthier. And during my presentation, as I was talking, I noticed a lady standing in the back. And any of you who've ever given a presentation or been to a presentation, you know there's always one person who's got a scowl on their face, they've got their arms crossed, they're ready to disbelieve everything that comes out of the mouth of the person speaking. And this lady was that lady. She was standing at the back of the room, scowling the whole time. And then at the end of my presentation, she thought she was throwing me a curveball. She said, well, how about craving chocolate? Why does that happen? And I said, well, there's a lot of reasons why we can crave chocolate, and I went through some of those things, why we crave sweets and everything, and I said, but one of the things that chocolate is really known for, that craving for chocolate, is a magnesium deficiency. And when you're low on magnesium, that oftentimes will stimulate you to crave a food that may contain it, such as chocolate. And all of a sudden, her arms came uncrossed, and her facial expression completely changed. And I didn't realize it till a few minutes later when she came up to me after the presentation was over, and she said, you know, you're absolutely right. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, I just realized it. My chocolate craving went completely away when I was on a magnesium supplement. And I said, oh, really? That's very interesting. And she says, and ever since I got off of that supplement, all of a sudden, my chocolate craving came back. And I said, wow, isn't that interesting? Hey, now wouldn't you like to get back on a magnesium supplement to help you? And I pointed her over to the table where all my friends were sitting talking about supplementation. So here's a plug for USANA. I sent her over to the USANA table that we had set up, and guess what? That was just that conversation there was enough to turn her into a customer. So you can share things like this. When you see somebody, you answer a question for somebody, you share information like this, you can oftentimes really change their opinion. But remember, chocolate has a lot of things besides those minerals. Theobromine, which is a stimulant, kind of like caffeine. Theobromine is also the stuff that makes chocolate toxic to dogs and cats and horses and parrots. So you don't want to give it to those animals, but give it to your kids instead. It also has a little bit of caffeine. Phenylethylamine is an antidepressant. That's why you feel good when you eat chocolate. Polyphenols, which are the same things that are in wine that make them healthy. The flavonoids, those are things that actually come from plants that cause us to clot less, and they reduce the chance of stroke and heart attack. Isn't that great? You can eat chocolate and get some great stuff from it as well. And there's lots of vitamins in chocolate and healthy fats. Now, this sounds all too good to be true, right? Well, before you all run off and take a bath in chocolate, Dr. Emran didn't say to run out and buy a box of chocolates and suck them down as quickly as you can. There's actually a magic number with chocolate, just like there is with temperature. Chocolate, when it's below 72% chocolate, now you've seen chocolate sometimes called dark chocolate and milk chocolate. When you see dark chocolate and it's below 72%, stay away. That's because they've added in a lot of sugar and they've added in a lot of other things in order to dilute that chocolate, make it less bitter, and make it more addictive. Now, it also takes away a lot of the health benefits when they do that. So when you get to 72% and above, the chocolate becomes a little bit more bitter, but there's a trick to that. if you leave the chocolate on your tongue to melt, all of a sudden the enzymes in your mouth will break that chocolate down, will break the starches down, and you'll start tasting flavors you've never tasted before. Don't chew, just let it melt in your mouth. And all of a sudden it will start having its own sweetness as the starches in the chocolate break down with the amylase in your mouth. So that 72% or greater will give you some of those beneficial substances that I talked about. Now, there are a lot of vitamins that we might unconsciously be craving. When we start craving things like vegetables and carrots and things like that, we might be craving vitamin A. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us have gotten away from eating organ meat. Most of us have been eating just muscle meat from animals. It used to be the first thing that everybody ate when an animal was slaughtered was all the organs, because those are the things that had the most nutrition in them. And we don't do that anymore. I mean, really, think about it. When was the last time that you actually had onions? I mean, liver and onions. When was the last time you ate a spleen or a pancreas? We don't do that anymore. And if you've ever looked in the grocery store, you have to actually go to a specialty butcher shop nowadays to find many of those things. You can't even find them in the grocery store. God only knows what they do with them. They probably pack them into other things or feed them to other animals. But when we look at the B vitamins, those come from a variety of different things. They can come from dairy and eggs. They can also come from different organ meats. They can come from nuts and grains. So you have to have a varied diet in order to be able to get all of your B vitamins. And even eating a varied diet doesn't always give you the vitamins you need. Sometimes you do need supplementation. In fact, there's several studies now that are showing that produce that's grown non-organically, I'm really struggling not to say inorganically, non-organically, they actually lack some of the nutrients because those, if you think about it, because of the fruits and vegetables that are grown with the traditional methods are sprayed with things to kill pests and they're sprayed with things to kill infections, they don't have to defend themselves. So they don't produce a lot of the things that helps them defend against those things. And guess what? All of those things are healthy for us in most cases. So for instance, an orange grown organically may have as much as 30% more vitamin C, even though it may be 2/3 the size of a non-organically produced orange. So it makes you kind of think about what kind of foods are you getting and how are you getting your nutrition as well. Vitamin C, we all know we get from citrus and fruits and vegetables. Vitamin D, most people think of dairy products when we think of vitamin D. But when we look at how much vitamin D we're getting from milk, you'd have to actually drink about 8 glasses of milk a day in order to get 100% of the recommended daily allowance. And now with the newer recommendations about how much vitamin D we actually need, you'd have to be drinking a lot more than that. And you're not absorbing all of that from the milk. So there are other sources other than just supplementation and sunlight. You can also get a lot of vitamin D from certain fish, such as salmon, from sardines and anchovies, but you can also get them from mushrooms. So if you've liked mushrooms on your pizza, there's a reason. It's providing you with a key nutrient. Now, vitamin E comes from nuts and certain vegetables, and vitamin K comes from green leafy vegetables. So if you crave any of those things, start thinking about maybe I'm missing some of those vitamins, and maybe you need to eat a little bit more of that food. Now, with protein, there are certain essential amino acids that our body cannot make. When we eat protein, our body can make other amino acids from ones that we eat. We can change them. But these are the ones that we cannot make. We actually have to take in our diet. So if you're craving red meat, or unusually enough, if you're craving a lot of bread or toast, that may be a sign that you are missing certain essential amino acids and you may need to supplement somehow or make sure that you're getting a good source of that, chicken, fish, etc., to make sure you get those. Now, Here's one that many of us have neglected: essential fatty acids. And a lot of you may be on omega-3 supplements, and I want to tell you that those do not provide you with the essential amino acids, or the essential fatty acids, excuse me. The essential fatty acids are very different. While they do contain omega-3s, they are not the same as the omega-3s that come from fish oil. Okay, now they are used to make some of those same ones, but they are not the same. They are needed for some other processes, not just for making the DHA and the EPA that we see in the fish oils. So you have to have other sources of fats in your diet in order to be healthy. And those fats actually help to regulate the inflammation process in your body, down-regulating inflammation. And inflammation can irritate your blood vessels and put you at risk for heart disease and heart attack, as well as inflaming the blood vessels in your brain and putting you at risk for stroke. But they also help you to regulate your mood. Okay, the fatty acids are used in every single cell of the body. Our cells have the outer surface of our cell, the cell membrane is made of fatty acids, so we have to have enough in our diet. And all the nerves in our body have to be insulated for the electrical signals to travel, and that includes our brain. And that insulation is made of the fatty acids. So we have to make sure that we take enough in our diet. Now, you need to make sure that you know where the sources are, and those can be gotten from, a lot of these can be gotten from some of the seed oils. Now, again, the way that the seeds are processed, things like canola oil and olive oil and some of the other unsaturated oils, you need to make sure that they are processed in a way that doesn't damage these fats. Now, what do I mean by that? So if you were to walk into, name your local grocery store, and pick up a bottle of canola oil, one of those giant tubs of canola that a lot of us pick up because it's a lot cheaper than buying the little bottle. When we pick that up, that stuff has been processed at high heat with a lot of chemicals, and that actually changes those omega-3s. Now, when the FDA looks at the nutritional value of these things, they don't take into consideration some of those processing methods. So when they damage those fats and they change those omega-3s into more harmful omega-6s, or change them in some other ways where they're not accessible to the body, that's not taken into account. And in fact, you may have heard of trans fats. The omega-3s may be transformed into those through this process, but they're not required to report that on their labeling. So you have to also look for things that are processed in a more natural way, what we call cold pressed, and that really preserves the integrity of these oils. These also help with cellular signaling, and they regulate DNA expression. So remember, we can turn on and we can turn off different parts of our DNA, and we want to turn on the good things and we want to turn off the bad things, and making sure we have good fats in our diet helps to do that. So if you've ever wondered why your fat gene is turned on, it may be that you're actually missing enough fat from your diet and enough of the right type of fat. So where do we get them? Well, I forgot to mention that you can, sometimes craving cheese can be a symptom of essential fatty acid deficiency. So where do we get them? Well, animal fat, but it's got to be free range or wild caught. Hemp, flax, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, walnuts, and green leafy vegetables. But sometimes, remember I mentioned some of those physical signs and symptoms that may be because we're deficient in something, but sometimes we actually get to the point of having a disease that may be a craving for something. So when we see a lot of these diseases that nobody has a cure for, what we're starting to find out is these things may actually be due to certain nutritional deficiencies. And because we can't point to one single substance, but a kind of combination of things that we may be missing, these have been missed for a long period of time. So there are people that are out there who are reversing things like multiple sclerosis simply by diet. There are people out there who are improving or dramatically improving ADHD and autism just by changing the diet. Things like vitamin D has been so underrepresented in the media and so underrepresented in the nutritional literature up until recently that a lot of people missed out on it, and that contributes to a lot of these things. Things like those essential fatty acids and a lot of other fats in the diet have contributed to some of the things such as multiple sclerosis and some of the autoimmune disorders. So how does this happen? Okay, it's not just a deficiency. Sometimes, you say, well, why is the body attacking itself, and autoimmune disorders and lupus and things like that? Why is that happening? So let me give you another way of looking at this. I want you to think of your body as a village, and each one of the cells in the body is a villager. Now, when we think of a village, and everything in the village is provided when we have enough room, when we have enough food, when we have enough water, there's enough mates to go around. Hey, everybody in the village gets along great. The minute that we take away one of those resources, what happens? People in the village start fighting. So you take away water, people are fighting over water. You take away food, people are fighting over food. You take away jobs, riches, women, men, whatever you take away, people are going to fight over it. And the same thing happens in the body. So it's not like rocket science. If you think about it, if your body is attacking itself, why would the cells of the body attack itself? And why does this happen? Well, we're probably missing something. And the strongest cells, just like in the village, the strongest people, the warriors, are the ones who are going to probably come out with the most. In the body, the warriors are the immune cells. So in the body, those immune cells are attacking every other cell in an attempt to take away those nutrients that they're lacking. So make sure that you're getting enough of the nutrition so that your body cells don't have to fight each other. You don't become a village at war with itself. So you really, when you start thinking about feeling good and feeling healthy, you want to make sure that you're feeling good because you feel good, not because you're adding substances that are enhancing your mood. So when we eat things like sugar, when we take things like caffeine, when people do things like smoke, they're taking in substances to try to make them feel good, when in fact they may actually be deficient in something that if they just supplemented, the body would get rid of that craving and they wouldn't need it anymore. So don't count on mood-enhancing substances. So the most important thing that you can do for yourself is really acknowledge your cravings. You want to recognize them. Don't ignore them because they may be telling you something that's extremely important. And you want to try to stay seasonal with your foods because there are certain times of the year where we need certain nutrients, and the foods that show up at those times of year provide them. And one of the things that I usually recommend to people when they're trying to figure things out is to really keep track. Journal what you're doing. If you keep track of the results you get when you try to satisfy a craving, so if you have a craving for sweets and you eat sweets and you write it down, well, I had this and this and this, and then a couple hours later, well, I'm craving it again, guess what? You weren't really craving sugar. You were craving something else. So when you start keeping track of these things, you can really start to identify what your body feels and what you're craving and what does that mean to you. And you want to make sure that you satisfy the underlying deficiency and not just the symptom. Now, God created us to be able to recognize what's really bad for us. And sometimes it's a little bit more subtle, but we have to really pay attention to differences. When we look at things and it looks monotonous to us, like this picture here, everything kind of looks the same. It tells us that when we crave things, we're not really craving those items. We're really craving something else behind those items. Those things that these foods may have been associated, some of the sweets, some of the salties, some of the savories may have been associated with. So when we see some foods like these, we really recognize, our eyes immediately open up, we immediately start having a craving for this kind of stuff because our body recognizes this stuff as really healthy stuff. And this is the kind of thing that we want to. because our body really is in tune with nature, and it does have the ability to recognize what seems to be good for us. So when you take a look at this picture, you immediately feel like you'd like to go there. This is something that's really inviting because our mind, our brain, our bodies have been programmed to be able to recognize those things. So don't ignore your cravings. So it's kind of like what Grandma used to say. You need to eat your veggies and take your vitamins. And don't forget to get your fill of sunshine every day as well. And with that, I'll leave it with make sure to get your vitamins that you may be missing, the things that you may have been craving, and I'll put in the plug for USANA here at the end. Thank you guys so much, and let's open it up for some questions.
All right, Dr. Emran. Well, wow, fantastic webcast tonight. Thank you so much for that. For those of y'all that are still on the webcast, there's quite a few of you here. On your control panel, this is your opportunity to just basically have the doctor in your own home. I know many of you are at your computers right now paying attention. So if you have questions in your drop-down menu there on your control panel, go ahead and type in some questions. If you're online, you can unmute yourself and feel free to jump in and ask any questions, Dr. Emran. Does anybody have any questions as we close out this evening?
I know we covered a lot of information in there, and one of the things I wanted to share with you all another story. Here in my office, one of the ladies was having a lot of trouble with diabetes, and so we were talking, and she was complaining about her blood sugars being all over the place, and she couldn't get enough the insulin level right to be able to control her blood sugars, and then it would go too low, and so one of the things I'd come across in looking at this when I knew about chromium deficiency, one of the sources of chromium, and you may not have known this, is cinnamon. And that's one of the reasons why cinnamon, now there are other reasons why cinnamon is a good way to help control blood sugar, but cinnamon is actually a good source of chromium. And so had her get on some cinnamon in the morning and some cinnamon in the evening, just kind of brew up a cinnamon tea with a teaspoon of cinnamon and a little bit of honey. And she, after doing it for a few days, she came back to me and she said, you know what? I had a change in my blood sugar of almost 200 points just by doing the cinnamon. And, and it was a lot better than I thought. I mean, I was giving it to her just hoping that we would get a few points or, just even it out a little bit, but to my amazement, it was a lot more than either one of us had anticipated, and she did really great with that.
Okay, Dr. Emran, we got a couple questions coming in. For those of the first questions from Jeff Coy Sr. He says, are you recommending USANA to your patients, and at what age do you start them?
I do. You're actually looking at my office right now, and right outside my door we have a rack on the wall with all the USANA pamphlets there. So I do recommend them. I recommend them to any child who's able to be safe taking solids. So if their child is able to take table foods and they've got enough teeth to crush up those USANA, then and you're not afraid of them choking on it, then I recommend it. So my son, he has not yet turned 2. My youngest son has not yet turned 2, and he has been on them for I would say over 4 months now. So.
Okay, fantastic.
So yes, I do recommend them.
From Ruby, she says, if I'm craving something sweet, what would you suggest I do at that moment?
Okay, so if you're taking your multivitamin on a regular basis, okay, a lot of times we will get rid of some of those things, those deficiencies that we have, so our sweet cravings will go down. But there's a lot of things that sneak in and kind of deceive us a little bit. So one of the things that we oftentimes forget is that vitamin D, okay, and in the immediate phase, we sometimes don't figure that out. But we want to make sure that we get enough vitamin D to help get rid of that part of it. We want to warm ourselves up. Okay, so getting into a warm place, warming yourself up, will take away that stimulation of the cold to make you want to have sweets. We actually were looking at how much cold stimulates your appetite, and it actually increases your appetite by as much as 26%. And your food preference goes to the sweet and starches. So it's really important to recognize that. So if you're in cold air conditioning or you're in a cold temperature, warming up enough to try to get your body at a temperature that's a little bit better than that 76 degree or better will probably help. Getting out in the sun also will help because of the vitamin D, but also because of the direct impact of the sunlight on your eyes and on your brain, which helps to shut down that mechanism. So the other thing to keep in mind is when you actually get those cravings because of the cold, your metabolism is actually slowing down by about 13% as well. So that's overall about 40% increase in the potential fat gain just from that one stimulus. So hopefully that answers you with something you can do immediately. Anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, we got a lot actually. So, and they're all really good questions too. So I got one from Donna here who says, after a customer purchased a reset kit, she called alarm that her blood sugars went up to 206. Do you recommend resets for folks with elevated sugar levels?
Yeah, one of the things. Okay, so this is one of the things that we need to pay attention to is everything has a different impact on people at different times. Okay, so when we say a low glycemic or high glycemic foods, they react slightly differently in different people. And the problem is sometimes the sugars are broken down very quickly and the body's still not able to handle them, particularly if that person has diabetes and uses substances such as artificial sweeteners. Because a lot of people who have diabetes will end up using artificial sweeteners because they want to avoid the sugar. What ends up happening, though, is those artificial sweeteners actually turn on the taste receptors in the gut. Now, you might have thought we only have taste receptors in our tongue, but the reality is we have them all along our upper gastrointestinal tract. So in our esophagus, our stomach, our small intestine, there are taste receptors all along the way. And when those taste receptors get turned on by those artificial sweeteners, it actually primes the body to absorb the sugars faster, and so that can make your blood sugars go up very quickly. So you want to make sure that they get off of all the artificial sweeteners. Now, the reality is there are people out there who are promoting what's called a starch diet, and there was a lot of literature on this a long time ago, and it's starting to come back now, where there's people who are actually making a career talking about how to get rid of, completely cure diabetes on a starch diet. So there's some new information that may completely change the way we look at how our body use sugars than what we thought. But I would reassure her and start trying to figure out which product in the reset kit caused it, because it's probably one of the products, not all of them. So she may want to kind of figure out maybe one of the bars is doing it, and then maybe leave that one out. Make sure that she gets rid of those artificial sweeteners, and then make sure that she can take things like cinnamon in addition, or she can add cinnamon to her shakes, and that will help to further regulate her blood sugars.
Okay, good stuff. Got a couple more here. Albert is asking. He says, "So bread is a big craving in his home. If I have some kids who are not very big meat eaters, what's a good alternative?"
Okay, so when you're trying to get your protein in your diet, you want to make sure that you're getting healthy, lean protein. So if you're not getting meat, you go to chicken, fish, eggs, beans, lentils. These are all great sources of protein. So the way I usually teach my patients, if you're talking about health, when we talk about which type of proteins to eat. The fewer the legs, the better, is what I usually teach them. So beef and pork are probably two of the worst. When you get to chicken, it's a little bit better. You get to fish, there's no legs, so it's even better. Eggs are pretty good. Again, if they're the free-range eggs, if you get the regular store-bought generic eggs, the way those chickens are kept and fed make those eggs relatively unhealthy. And if you've ever compared the eggs from a free-range chicken to the regular eggs, you'll notice a dramatic difference in not only appearance, but the shells will be thicker because the animals are healthier, and the flavor is just something completely different. So if you've never tried it, I would suggest you pick them up side by side, compare them, and taste the comparison at the same time, because your body will be able to pick up on the difference in nutrients. So like I said, eggs, fish, beans are a great source of protein, and lentils are a great source of protein as well. Chickpeas, so a lot of options there.
Yeah, we got one from Jeff. Do you find probiotics helpful or necessary for children?
Now, probiotics, the problem that we have with probiotics today, the reason that we need probiotics today is we're excessively clean. We bathe every single day. We clean underneath our fingernails all the time. We vacuum our homes and keep them decontaminated with all kinds of products. And our kids don't make it outside. And when was the last time you saw your kid try to stick something in their mouth and you didn't do anything about it? Oh, don't put that in your mouth, right? So, I mean, we go crazy. The kid's outside in the yard and he goes to stick a stick in his mouth, or he grabs a snail and wants to eat it. We go crazy. We knock it out of his hand and, what are you doing? Don't eat that. And, the reality is parents used to let their kids out in the yard, and the kids used to dig in the dirt and stick their hands in their mouth, and they used to do all kinds of stuff out there and eat things that you wouldn't even think of putting in your mouth. And they would get those bacteria on their own. Nowadays, we don't get that. We're oftentimes in isolated buildings. We've got sterile, environments. Our yards are well manicured, so they can't even get to the dirt, and we don't let them put their hands in their mouth. So, yeah, I would say probiotics probably serve a role.
Well, it's a good analogy. Okay, I got a couple more. And let's see, this one's from Tony. It says, what is the difference between the alpha linoleic acid and alpha lipoic acid? Where do we get them? One comes in our shakes, another comes in our Optomega that you can buy from convention. What other foods have them?
All right, so let me go back to that slide here. Here, I'll go back. So there's a lot of different foods that provide them, but a lot of them are seeds. So here we go. So first of all, we can get them from animal fat. So animals that are free-range animals, so cows that actually eat grass, and chickens that actually eat grass and bugs like they're supposed to, they will actually contain higher levels of omega-3s, including these essential amino acids, because they're eating plants that will contain them. And so those fats get used in their bodies to help them build their bodies, and then when we eat them, we get them as well. Now, you may have heard about chia seeds and flax seeds becoming more popular, and those are great sources of it. I don't know if many of you, when we were younger, when we used to carve the pumpkins for Halloween, our favorite thing in the world was to roast those pumpkin seeds and eat those pumpkin seeds. And nowadays, I see most people just scoop them out and throw them away. It's just that spaghetti stuff that's in the middle of the pumpkin that nobody thinks about. But really, those are actually the most nutritious part of the pumpkin. So, so you shouldn't throw them away. You clean them off, you roast them, throw a little bit of sea salt on them, and they're fantastic. Walnuts. We've supplanted walnuts with a lot of other nuts because we go for sweet flavors, and walnuts are a little bit bitter. But walnuts are a great source of some of these oils, as are some of the other nuts, but not quite as much as walnuts. And then green leafy vegetables. But again, you got to be careful because green leafy vegetables that are grown with modern farming techniques, they are grown very rapidly. They're given a lot of artificial uh, 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 stuff to get them to grow and protect them, and they're given more water than the regular vegetables would have, so they become a lot larger. They're more dilute. They don't have the same things that we have in them in the organic type of vegetables, things that are grown with more natural means.
Okay, we got time for, we'll do one more. Um, this is from Mary. It says, how much vitamin D do you recommend for kids, and how much fish oil do you recommend?
Okay, so for now, it really this is really a variable thing because of some of the literature that we're seeing coming out now about vitamin D and about what are the problems with omega-3 deficiencies. Uh, this may vary for different kids. So, for instance, my daughter, she was born with a little bit of a developmental delay, and when we started researching it, you know, this is one of the fringe benefits of her having a doctor for a father, is I started putting my attentions towards what is she missing, because I was like, there's got to be something there. And one of the things that I found out was that the omega-3 levels, those healthy fat levels in a woman's body go down by as much as 50% during pregnancy. So the woman will actually give up more of her healthy fats to the baby to her own detriment. Like she will become deficient in order to make sure that the baby gets enough. But what happens if she gets pregnant again very rapidly, which is what happened in our case. Our first two kids are 11 months apart, and you know, with the fatigue that comes with pregnancy and then having a new baby, you can imagine things were kind of a little bit chaotic around the household when it came to what we eat. And so we probably weren't eating as well as we could have been. So here comes my daughter who's got these developmental delays, and it was really, you know, it was something that really made us think very hard about what are we going to do. I mean, you know, if our daughter stays behind, you know, what are we going to do for the rest of our life? And so I'm the kind of guy who doesn't like to leave things alone. I like to find answers to problems. So we started her on omega-3. So we started her on the fish oils, and we actually give her about 2,000 milligrams a day. So we give her 1,000 in the morning and 1,000 in the evening. And in addition to that, she gets safflower oil, which is a great source of the linoleic and the alpha linoleic, and she gets a teaspoon of that as well. Now we mix it into her milk so she never tastes it, but she's been getting that for about a year now, or about a year and a half now, and the results, I won't say they're miraculous, but they're pretty dramatic. I mean, when her grandparents come and visit, they can see a huge difference and a huge advancement in what she's doing. Now, for regular kids, now our other two boys, they are fortunately have no problems, but we've been giving them about 1,000 milligrams a day, you know, of the omegas, which is a lot more than people recommend, but there's not really a known toxicity to these. There's no known toxicity. We worry about the metals and things, the heavy metals that come in these, but there are ways to get around that. There are forms of this that are purified. There are sources of omega-3s that don't have the heavy metals, and so when you see the intellectual performance of kids who have been supplemented with these omega-3s, it's just they kind of stand out a little bit from their peers, and so I recommend it very highly. Now the vitamin D, it really depends. Now we again, my daughter had the good fortune of having a father as a physician, in that we went and did a bunch of lab tests on her to see what was going on with her. And we found out that she was, despite the fact that we have a really balanced diet, fish is a great part of our diet, we eat sardines all the time, we get out in the sun all the time, and we still managed to have a daughter who was vitamin D deficient. And not by a little bit. I mean, it was dramatic. So we started on all of our kids on vitamin D supplementation, and we give them about 1,000 units every single day. Again, we got the vitamin D and just put it into their milk, so they never feel it, they just get it. But that doesn't substitute for the stuff that we're getting in our diet, and it definitely doesn't substitute for getting out in the sun. So we're making a conscious effort ourselves to try to get them out in the sun more so that we can really build those vitamin D levels.
All right, Dr. Emran. Well, that's the only questions we've got left for this evening. We've run out of time. I do know that. Well, first of all, thank you so much for taking your time this evening. I know that you're a very busy guy, especially with 3 beautiful kiddos and a full practice and spring cure and authoring of books and all the things that you do. I really do appreciate you taking the time. I know that you've always been more than willing, and you're always very patient with us and very courteous on doing some of those things. But I do want to make sure that you know that we're very thankful for that. For a lot of the people that are on the call, and this call is actually being recorded, and we'll be able to make this available to a lot of people. For those people that even will listen to this as recording, I do know that you have a book out there. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, if I missed it during your webcast. Would you like to give everybody an option to find out where they can get your book, because you cover a lot of information there specifically on some of this stuff?
Yeah, my book. Let me see if I can pull up the link to it here. Let's see, presentations, USANA, and there we go. So my book is called Fast Track Your Health, the 4 Keys to Successful Weight Loss. And in the book, what I talk about is, no, I don't have it in this one. What I talk about is looking at all the things besides nutrition and exercise that everybody needs in order to succeed with weight loss. Because everybody's writing about this diet and that diet, and I think that they really miss the boat, because just like when we're talking about our businesses and success with our businesses, if we don't plan, if we fail to plan, we plan to fail, right? And so it's real important to plan out a weight loss effort and not just take it randomly. Oh, here it is. So here's the book, Fast Track Your Health, the 4 Keys to Successful Weight Loss. And I would recommend you pick it up on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. It's available everywhere through Amazon. And please, once you've had a chance to read it, please go back on Amazon and rate it, because that really helps me be able to produce more books with more information. So you guys got a taste of actually the stuff on cravings is probably going to be in my 3rd book. I'm working on the 2nd book right now. And then the 3rd book is going to be all about cravings. So please pick up a copy and look into it, because I think it has a lot of information that can help a lot of people succeed with a problem that a lot of people are dealing with.
All right, well, fantastic. Well, Dr. Emma, again, thank you so much. We're going to let you go for tonight. It was a great call. For all of you on the line, next week is week 3 of our online TI Bootcamp. Be looking forward for that. Before I let you guys go, let me pull it up so I make sure exactly who's speaking. I'll make sure I give you guys the right info here. Hang on. I think next week is, let's see here. Next week is Miss Linda Watson, Silver Director, and I will tell you she's going to be bringing the house for sure. So you'll make sure and plug in. Make sure you go to tiwebcast.com and get yourself registered. You can actually register for all of those webcasts right there. Just hit the drop-down menu, select each one of them individually, and register yourself for each individual webcast. Dr. Emran, again, thank you for this evening. Y'all plan ahead for next Monday, 8 o'clock, same time, same place, tiwebcast.com. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Brian Bolke all the way from Utah signing off. Dr. Emran, thank you so much for this evening. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Bye.